in a way which Rabbi Nachman only knows how. He has thrown the gauntlet down, and he's explained to us that the exile of God in this world comes with the fact that those people who learn Torah that are not doing so for the right reasons causes the Shekhinah to go into exile. Because the Shekhinah, the presence, the revelation of godliness in this world is in the oral Torah, the Torah that was passed down from generation to generation since the times of Moshe Rabbeinu. And because they're learning for the wrong reasons, they're taking the Torah, meaning the Shekhinah, down into exile. And that's the reason why we don't see Hashem in our lives. So this is a very strong statement, to the extent that Rabbi Nachman calls these people Shade Yehudim, Jewish scholar demons. But the obvious question is, how can it be that a person learns the Torah of a real tzaddik, a transformational figure, whose whole life was given over to trying to help the Jewish people to come out of exile, to achieve closeness to Hashem? How come it is that a person can have their whole life change? Someone like me can go from being in the psych ward, contemplating suicide, and wondering if I want to live another day in my life, and to apply the teachings of the tzaddik of Rabbi Nachman to the extent that now I'm teaching emunah, faith, to the whole world. Whereas another person can read these teachings and not affect them at all. They're not changed at all by these words of this pure tzaddik. So here Rabbi Nachman answers something unbelievable. Ve'im yikshe if there's a difficulty that's arising for you, halo tekef kshelomer alamdan chidush el tzaddik. Why isn't that as soon as this learned individual learns this Torah of the tzaddik, hayalo lechazor b'tshuva, it doesn't compel him to return to a higher state of being? He doesn't think to himself, wow, I want to be a better person now. Wow, I want to elevate now. I want to be more selfless now. I want to give to others more willingly now. I don't want my whole life to be surrounded around me. I don't want to live an egotistical life anymore, where it's all about self-aggrandizement. I want to be able to live a life of service. I want to be able to live a life giving to other people, utilizing these gifts of wisdom that Hashem has given to me to help Jewish people, not to hurt them. How come that doesn't happen for them? How is it that this oral Torah that they're learning from the tzaddik allows them to continue and even increase in their negativity, to even embellish their ego even more, to encourage their destructive behavior? Teshuvah zeh, here's the answer. V'yaged Yaakov l'Rachel ki achi aviha, v'hu v'chi ven Rivkahu. Because the pasuk says about Yaakov Avinu, meaning this true tzaddik, when he's speaking to Rachel, talking about Rachel is the oral Torah that he's producing. That is these chidushim, these novelties in Torah understanding that Yaakov is bringing to the world. And what is he saying about her? Because she's coming from him, he's saying that I am the brother of your father in cunningness, and I am the son of my mother in holiness. So we're bringing out two elements from here. Perush, b'sha'ash yagid hatzadik a Torah shebal peh, and the time that the tzaddik says over Torah shebal peh, he gidot b'vechinat, he says it in these two levels that exist parallel to each other. And that is this famous pasuk from Hosea, tzadikim yalchu vam ufoshim mikashlu vam. Tzadikim walk in it, and those who are disconnected from truth, those who are bound up with their ego, they stumble in it. So the simple meaning of the pasuk seems to be saying that the tzaddikim, meaning those who are connected to this deeper truth, who have nullified their ego and are trying to help everybody connect to this higher reality to transform their lives for the best, they are successful in all of their steps. While we have Rashayim, those people who are not, who are only concerned about themselves and furthering their own success, that they are not succeeding. However, the secret of this pasuk is that they are learning the same exact thing and causing two different things to take place. It's an incredible insight. Where does this come from? How can it be that two people are learning the same exact thing, one of them becomes a greater tzaddik. He becomes a greater version of himself from it. It becomes more humble. It becomes more of service to those around him. And another person learns that same thing, and it actually increases his ego. It causes him to chase after money even more. It causes him to chase after fame even more. It causes him to chase after honor even more. Because it says in Masechet Yoma, an incredible statement. There's a pasuk, and it says, this is the Torah that that Moshe presented to the Jewish nation. This word presented is the word sam. Now the Gemara in Yoma says, because the Torah is a sam, it's an elixir. It can either be an elixir of life or an elixir of death. All depending on what? The person. While we usually think about the Torah as this entity, which is parv, right? It's just good. It's good no matter who learns it, when they learn it, how they learn it. But you see explicitly from the sages, it's not true. It's simply not true. The Torah is an elixir. And this elixir can be one of life if a person is learning from a place of humility. What does that look like? I don't know. That's it. If I come into learning with I don't know, but I want to know. And why do I want to know? Because I want to connect to the truth of truths. No matter where that takes me. Even if that moves me way beyond my limits. Even if that breaks all of my boundaries that I previously had. All of my previous conceptions are dumbfounded. And yet through this, I'm able to elevate and become a greater version of myself. I'm able to elevate and become a greater servant of Hashem. So that's called an elixir of life. And this is all alluded to by the fact that we received the Torah at Har Sinai. Why Har Sinai? Because it was the smallest of the mountains. The Torah was given on that mountain because when the Torah is learned with humility, then it becomes life mamish. There's techiyat hametim. There's mamish, a resurrection of one's soul. However, when a person does not receive the Torah on Sinai, but instead he receives the Torah on the highest mountain, he's learning the Torah in order to be a contrarian to others, in order to disprove others, in order to embellish his ego, in order to, like Rabbi Nachman speaks about, the worst type of arrogance, to pretend like he's humble through his Torah learning so that other people should honor him. Then that same exact Torah actually causes him to go deeper into his own ego, deeper into his own taivas, into his own desires for physicality that are divorced from any type of deeper meaning or spirituality. It can be either. It all depends on what is my motivation right now. It doesn't even matter where you're holding, meaning you might not have worked on yourself at all yet, but if I simply want something good, and this is the power of Ratzon. If I simply want the truth, then the Torah is going to help you. But if I want my truth, if I want it to fit with what I believe, if I want to, you see this all the time. There are people, they connect to the Torah through one way. Let's say they have a passion for the land of Israel. They love the land of Israel, and that's an amazing thing. Every Jew should love the land of Israel. And now all of a sudden, every single lesson that they learn is showing them that everybody should move to the land of Israel, right? But maybe that's not what this lesson's teaching you. Maybe the lesson's teaching you something else. That, like Rabbi Nachman says, that you can make, and we have to make chutz la'aretz, Eretz Yisrael. We need to make every piece of chutz la'aretz, every piece of land outside of the land of Israel, as holy as the land of Israel, right? When I hear that, I have to be able to, swallow my pride. Because really, if you're learning Torah, you're constantly going to be challenged in your own internal workings, in your own internal mindset, things that you naturally think. Sometimes it's going to resonate, and it should. It should resonate deeply. It should bring you more clarity on things that you always kind of intuited as being true. And it should strengthen that. But at the same time, there's just going to be times where you thought something and it's something else. Who's the person who's able to take that and take it on the chin and meditate on that and live with that? And even if it causes him to, maybe fall for the day, But to get back up the next day and say, Hashem, please help me to resonate with this. Help me to believe how this could be true, that you want this. Right? Like, I'll just give you an example. I'm a person who naturally connects very much to love. My whole life growing up was about love. I was volunteering at a suicide hotline. I was helping people who were underprivileged, who were less fortunate, volunteering to go to their homes and spend time with their kids. You know, a lot of different beautiful things, thank God. Because Hashem placed in me a deep yearning to love. And so when I connected to the Torah, I connected very much through love. And that's a beautiful, beautiful thing. However, there's a higher level than that, which is to realize that the reason why it's a good thing to love other people is because Hashem said so. And it gives you a whole new appreciation for how much Hashem loves us. Because if you realize that love is only beneficial when it's applied within certain boundaries, right? Because if I love without limit, then that's really selfish love. What if the person is not a vessel for my love and I'm just loving them? Loving and loving. It sounds amazing, right? In the world that I grew up in, Western, liberal, left-wing type of thinking, this is the most beautiful, incredible thing. This is what's going to change the whole world. And there's a part of it that's true, right? Love breaks all boundaries. But on the other hand, love without limits is a flood. Love without limits is rape. And it doesn't respect the selfhood of the other individual when there's no boundaries and constrictions to that love. It's not helpful anymore. Love is only good when it happens in its time. And so for me, part of personal growth has been channeling that love, making appropriate times to express that love to appropriate people, right? And actually holding back from giving that love, because that's a higher expression of love when the situation deems. Like, for instance, if I have a student and I know the answer to his problem, so it would seem like love, the greatest love right now, would be for me to tell him the answer. However, the Torah makes very clear that there's different levels of tzedakah, of charity. Obviously, it's an amazing thing to give charity. However, the highest level of charity is to teach someone how to work themselves, so they don't need charity. And so really a greater level of love, a greater expression of my love and respect for this person would be to actually remove, so to speak, the revelation of my love, to allow them to have the space to internalize how to actually move through the situation on their own. Now, it doesn't mean I don't give them advice. That doesn't mean that I don't encourage them like crazy. It doesn't mean that I'm not there for them 100%. But part of me loving them is actually moving back. And this is a window into Hashem's love for us. Because often we think to ourselves, where is Hashem's love for us? I don't feel Hashem's love in my life at all. But that itself is Hashem's love. You know, we learn that Avraham gave birth to Yitzchak. Yitzchak is the son of Avraham. This is what it says in the Torah. But it's really hard to understand this double language. Just say that Yitzchak is Avraham's son. Why do we have to see it 2 times? So the deep secret here is because you would never think that Yitzchak, who represents Hashem's Gevurah, Hashem's concealment, Hashem's refraining himself from you, his distancing from you, is the son, the child, the offspring of Avraham, which is Hashem's love for you. Hashem's revealing himself to you. Again, so this is a very beautiful thing, and it's something that's very important to know. Yitzchak is the son of Avraham. Avraham gave birth to Yitzchak. Concealment is the birthplace from love. Love gave birth to concealment. It allows you to be able to achieve selfhood, to become yourself to the fullest. Because without that space, you could never be you. And that is a greater love than Hashem just pouring His love on you. So too here. The Torah is going to continue to push you beyond your limits, beyond your boundaries. There's going to be things that you naturally connect to, You should continue strengthening in those, but there's going to be things that are going to challenge you. And you can either stumble in it and just pretend it doesn't exist, or you can cry and you can scream and you can pray to Hashem to be able to really open you up to a deeper truth than the one that you had previously experienced. And this is something that Rabbi Nachman is going to continuously do to us. He's going to continuously challenge us, push us to move beyond our boundaries. But when we are able to have the humility to believe that another person, like Yaakov Avinu, he knows more than me, it's okay, right? Then I could see tremendous growth